When it comes to being social, we're all wired a little differently. Today, we're going to untangle what that really means. Everything from just needing some quiet time to the really complex reasons why someone might withdraw from the world entirely. So we're going to explore this huge spectrum of human connection. On one end, you have a pretty common personality trait that helps people recharge. But on the other, you have a state of extreme withdrawal that can literally trap people in their homes, sometimes for years. It's a journey from the familiar to the deeply, profoundly isolating.
All right, so let's kick things off with something a lot of us can probably relate to: introversion. And this is so much more than just preferring a quiet night in. The science actually shows it's baked into our biology. It's a real, fundamental difference in how our brains are wired.
Okay, so check this out, because this is where it gets really cool. Neuroscience shows that introverted and extroverted brains are basically running on different kinds of fuel. The extroverted brain just loves dopamine. That's the chemical that says, ooh, reward, new things, let's go. But the introverted brain, it gets more of a buzz from something called acetylcholine, which is tied to deep thought, planning, and focus. So one brain is wired to chase rewards out in the world, while the other is rewarded by what's going on inside. And this is where you really see the effects of that wiring in everyday life. Introverts often have a more active prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain doing all the heavy lifting and deep thinking. They're also literally more sensitive to the world around them. So a loud party or a chaotic street isn't just annoying, it can be genuinely overwhelming. It's not about being shy or antisocial, it's that their brains are already so busy with their own inner world that a ton of external input just overloads the system. Solitude isn't about avoidance, it's about needing to plug in and recharge the battery. Okay, so we've got a handle on introversion. But now, we're going to shift gears and look at something way more extreme. This is a phenomenon that was first really identified and studied in Japan, where it's become a major social and psychological issue.
And that name, hikikomori, it literally tells you everything you need to know: pulling inward, being confined. This isn't just someone going through a phase. We're talking about a profound, total retreat from society. And the definition is pretty strict. You have to be physically isolated in your home for at least 6 months, and it has to be causing you real distress or making it impossible to function in the outside world.
And get this, the scale of the problem is, well, it's just staggering. The psychiatrist who really pioneered the research on this, Tamaki Saito, he estimated there could be as many as 1.5 million people in Japan living this way. So this is not some rare, obscure condition. It's a hidden crisis affecting a huge number of people. So what does this actually look like? Well, these are the hallmarks. The withdrawal is complete, often to the point of being confined to a single bedroom. A lot of times, their sleep schedule completely flips. They'll sleep all day to avoid any chance of interaction and then be awake all night, often online or with other solitary hobbies. And this can go on for years, sometimes even for decades. Okay, so this brings up a really important question, right? Is hikikomori just a super extreme form of introversion? Is it the same as social anxiety? Or is it something else? It's easy to get the labels mixed up, but figuring out the motivation behind it all is the key.
Because, on the surface, they can all look pretty similar. Someone spending a lot of time alone. But the why? Man, the why is everything. The reason a person is choosing solitude is what separates a personality trait from a phobia or a clinical disorder. The reason for the retreat changes the whole story.
This table breaks it down perfectly. Think about it like this. For an introvert, being alone is like plugging in your phone. It's how you recharge. But you still want to have a few close friends. For someone with social anxiety, being alone is like hiding from something scary, that fear of being judged or rejected. They often desperately want to connect with people, but they're just too afraid. And then you have schizoid personality disorder, which is different again. There's just a genuine lack of interest. The desire to connect isn't really there in the first place. And sometimes the best explanations come from unexpected places. This one comment from a Reddit user just hits the nail on the head. You can think of it like this. All people with schizoid personality disorder are extreme introverts, but not all extreme introverts have the disorder. The trait can be part of it, but the trait by itself isn't the whole story.
So you have to wonder, how does this even happen? How does a person get to the point where they withdraw so completely from the world? Well, there's no single, easy answer. It really seems to be this complex, tragic mix of pressures coming from everywhere in a person's life.
The best way to think about it is like a perfect storm. So first, you've got this societal pressure cooker, especially in a place like Japan. Insane academic pressure, bullying, the old promise of a stable job for life disappearing.
Then you have the family layer, where maybe there are communication problems or family dynamics that actually unintentionally make it easier to just stay home. And finally, you have the individual themselves. Maybe they're highly sensitive, or they've had some kind of social failure, like failing a big exam, that creates this deep, paralyzing sense of shame. When all three of those layers press down at once, the pull to just retreat can become overwhelming.
So yeah, it's this whole web of modern pressures. But hang on, is being solitary always a bad thing? Let's zoom out for a second and look at this from an evolutionary angle. Because for most of human history, it wasn't a flaw. Both strategies, being outgoing and being reserved, had huge survival advantages. The introvert who acts fast might discover a new source of food, but the introvert who hangs back and observes might be the one who spots the predator hiding in the bushes. You needed both for the group to survive.
And this is so important to remember. This kind of temperament has played a vital role in human society for ages. In some early cultures, the most introverted people, the ones who kind of lived on the edge of the village, were the shamans, the healers. Their ability to step back from the group, to see things objectively without getting caught up in the hype, was an essential skill for the entire community. It wasn't a bug in the system, it was a feature.
All right, so let's bring it back to today. With all this in mind, from everyday introversion to the crisis of hikikomori, what does this all mean for the future of how we connect with each other?
Well, the long-term impact is it's truly devastating. In Japan, they call it the 80-50 problem. The first wave of hikikomori from the 90s are now in their 50s, and they're still at home, being cared for by their parents, who are now in their 80s. And it raises this heartbreaking, urgent question, who's going to care for this isolated generation when their parents are gone?
And look, you might be thinking this is just a problem over there, but it's not. Not anymore. The entire world just went through a collective experience of lockdown and isolation during the pandemic. And now, researchers are warning that the aftershocks, the social stress, the economic anxiety, could make this kind of extreme withdrawal a lot more common everywhere.
And that really leaves us with this one last huge question to think about. Our world is becoming more and more digital, more remote. You can work, you can shop, you can even socialize without ever leaving your house. So we have to ask ourselves, in creating all this convenience, are we accidentally building a society that makes it incredibly easy to pull inward and a whole lot harder to reach out? What's the right balance between being connected and being alone? And how do we make sure that choosing solitude doesn't turn into being trapped by it?